Hey everybody, well, there it is, 2022 Busa. We've all been waiting so long. Thank you, Suzuki, for finally making our Busa dreams come true. Initial thoughts when I first looked at it, looks good, definitely looks like a Busa. It's got two big, giant, ugly exhausts that we just love getting rid of, so that's nice. And it's just going to be interesting to see what we end up with, not in bone stock form, but once we get to work our magic on it. Suzuki knows where they need to be. They know where they need to be horsepower wise, and I'm sure that we'll be able to extract it. It may take a while. This Euro 5 stuff's really been throwing us a lot of curveballs, but if we can get past that, and we've already got a nice jump on product development, we'll get this thing looking and sounding really good and going stupid fast. Stupid fast. Yeah, let's do that. It's a Gen 3. We'll say it 3 times. Stupid fast. Anyway, we will let you know, because this bike is going to go from this truck straight to our dyno. That's with the oil at the low level in the window. There's no oil flowing through the holes. Rev it high enough, we do get some splash over here in the corner. There is no doubt that is pouring more oil. Now, without the throw out in there, I don't know, but you can see it in here. It was definitely dumping out. Okay, in this experiment, I forget which number it is, Mark. What do you think? 8, 10? We had oil coming out of our top hat oiling flow holes here, and then we put the clutch back together and it quit. So the question is, why? Did we block them off somehow when we put the clutch plates in? Or did we block off what was coming out from the sides of the throw out? Because I'm afraid they may not have enough clearance there to allow enough oil to be getting into the clutch area. Of course, that's their business, not mine. But when we're drag racing, we need more oil moving, because more oil moves more heat away from the clutch, and these things have been eating up clutches like no other generation Busa we've ever seen. So let's try this out. from here, it doesn't look like the clutch is getting much oil at all, and it's primarily because it's not leaking out of the throwout bearing like it's supposed to be. So we're gonna make some adjustments here and see what we can come up with. All right, in this video, we have gone in and modified the sides of the throwout after noticing that the ZX14 and the Hayabusa basically, I don't know, block off the oil that's supposed to be coming through the shaft. I put a couple slots in this shaft to try to get more oil in here than normal. And if it works, we should be able to see it dripping out of the shaft and into the input basket here. So this is the best way I've learned how to put the stator covers on without them yanking out of your hand, pinching your fingers, and possibly damaging your crank position sensor. All I did was take some old, I think these were sprocket covered bolts, chop the heads off of them, and I found some little plastic spacers that are a little bit larger than the dowel pins, so that when I go to put the cover on, I'll let the cover go up against the dowels. I'll grab the dowels with hemostats and unscrew them so I can get this thing to come down lighter and straighter. Another good idea when you're putting this cover on, if you notice, this sensor is located basically in between these two bolt holes. So if you take a wrench and rotate the engine over so that you've got larger flat spots on the pickup, just rotate it to where those larger spots are in between those two bolt holes. The chances of you damaging your sensor also go way down. All right, we're going to see if we can cause a trouble code by doing a burnout. All right, now we did just get a code, C1768. All right, we got the C1768 code again. All right, as you can see, I was able to duplicate the problem with the electronic throttle valve that we've been having. 43 means drop down to 57%, and actually drop down a little worse, 53. So that'd be 47% on my dry hops. Now we've put in the IMU delete, and we will check to see if that BS goes away. All right, guys. 0 codes, no codes whatsoever. We're going to go ahead and try and launch. All right, we did get the 1768 code again. But let's see if it let the throttle work. It felt like it did to me, but we'll see. All right, we're going to do a dry hop now to see whether or not we have the noise from the electronic throttle valves with the IMU disconnected. Data logger is on. Can't launch real hard here on this concrete, but I can launch okay. All right, I know it spun the tire, but I could control the wheel spin with the throttle. I believe we have it. We will know as soon We did get the C1769 code. My guess is that's wheel spin, front and rear wheel speed not matching, but I have not looked up that code yet. All right, last Sunday we were in Maryland. This Thursday we're at Kilcare in Dayton, Ohio. Jeremey Teasley agreed to come from Columbus to ride the bike to see if we actually have it de-restricted now. Believe it or not, Jeremey went an 875 on a restricted bike. Let's see if he... Jeremey? Looks like you had 100% throttle and had it back pedal? Yeah. Huh? We win.
What is that, chain loop?
They are in trouble now. It's chain loop. Okay. Yeah. First unrestricted pass on a Hayabusa, Gen 3 Hayabusa ever. Very first one. You just watched it. Except for my dry hop at the parking lot. It's pretty epic, but this is epic. All right. Well, I hope you like our collage. I think we put about 3 years, 180 weeks or so, seemed like forever, worth of work, life, and things in there. Now, I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain what the hell took so long. Because I got to tell you, this thing really had me scratching my head. So anyway, if you saw in the collage, you'll notice that we have a whole new facility. We've added another building to Brock's Performance, and if the acoustics are poor in here, I sort of hear it echo now. I apologize. We'll get that sorted as soon as we can. But we've been busy moving. We've been busy with work. If you watch the channel, you know number one priority is Brock's Performance, and then at some point come videos. Well, I really didn't expect this is what you do with the Gen 3 Hayabusa video to take anything close to this, but there were some things that went on that were absolutely insane. I won't tell that story, hopefully it won't take too long, but before we get too far into this, if you own a Generation 3 Hayabusa and you think, well, I got my ECM flash by so-and-so and he's the world's greatest, I got bad news for you. Your bike is doing exactly what you saw this bike doing when it was throwing those codes during the launch. And I can sort of put it to you this way. If you dead stop launch your bike, roll on the gas real hard, or do anything that makes that little nuisance orange triangle glow, you have the problem. Good news, you have the solution. So let me start trying to put this into perspective for you. First of all, we went out to the first XDA race of the year. Chris Moore was nice enough to say, yeah, Brock, sure. Nobody else has ever tried a Gen 3 out here, but, you know, besides Patrick. I'll jump in and we'll see how we can do. Chris Moore rode the wheels off this motorcycle because I got to tell you, the 891 that Chris ran at the XDA race at the beginning of the year, this is not the same motorcycle. And I don't mean we've added performance tricks or anything else. From a mechanical standpoint, absolutely everything is still the same. From an electrical and electronic standpoint, we had to throw a bunch of stuff out, metaphorically speaking, like stuff you can't see. And the stuff that we have now, just so we're also clear, we did not run it during the XDA season at all. In fact, I thought I had it cured, and I thought that we had flashed ECM. Brendan Griffin at BT Tuning, I know we flashed that ECM 30 different times because I started after Chris rode the bike, and he did a good job, and the numbers were okay, but the numbers didn't match the horsepower, the weight of the bike. We know how fast these things are supposed to go. So the very next week, we still haven't unstrapped the bike from when Chris ran it at XDA in the springtime. That's how anal I am about making sure everything's exactly the same. We asked Mike Davis, hey, come to Killcare and ride this bike. Mike ended up with the number 2 plate in XDA this year. He is a hell of a rider. He's just too big, that's all. He's 197 pounds in his shorts, going up against guys, some of them in their 120s, a lot of them in the 140s and 50s. That just makes it tough for him. But Mike rode the bike, and yet again, Mike did a nice job, but the numbers didn't add up. Really good riders like Mike and Chris, the problem this bike was having, they could ride through it and they would just nail it and get great 60 foots in the low 150s. But the time, the ET that it took to go from the 60-foot clock to the 330 was off. It was way off. In super stock, if you want to be a #1 competitive, no shit, I'm winning this race because my bike is fast, you're going to have 330s in the 3.90 range. A lot of the guys have them in the 3.8 range, which is absolutely world class. This bike was in the 4s most of the time. We may have squeaked a high 390 out of it when Chris rode the bike, but Mike Davis even said, he said, you know, Brock, I don't know. He goes, it just won't go. He said, I leave and I'm like, man, I'm leaving and I'm tearing out of there and the bike feels good. And then I look at the time ticket and go, what the hell happened? There's something wrong here. Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. In fact, show you what happened right after this. All right. How do I explain this without sounding nuisance or annoying? All right. So back in the old days, like before this bike and before really the 2017 GSXR, Suzuki, for emissions reasons, came up with their dual throttle valve, which basically meant you had one plate in the throttle body and another plate behind it. Well, the rider operated the initial plate, but the ECM operated the one that was further back and actually controlled how much air could get into the engine. Fast forward to the 2022 Hayabusa and newer. And also, guys, with Euro 5, this is going to happen to a lot more motorcycles in the future. We just happen to figure it out on this particular motorcycle. So from a rider's standpoint, it's got 2 throttle cables, it's got a throttle. You do that, and it feels like all motorcycles have always felt if you're used to fuel-injected motorcycles. Well, the difference is these cables go down, and if we get a chance, I'll try to pull stuff apart and give you a glimpse of it. But there's a little box down here that the cables go into. It's called an actuator. And what happens is, as the rider gives it different input, it turns that input into throttle position. And if the rider, they call it in the car world driver's wish, I guess you would say. So driver's wish or electronic throttle valve actuation right now is at 0. There's at 100%, 50%, and so on the surface. But when you heard Jeremey talk about the electronic throttle valve issue, even after he won the race, we knew there was a problem. And I know I'm digressing here a little bit, but when Mike Davis rode the bike at Killcare, I'd stand behind him and he would launch and I would hear the bike, I don't want to say bog, it didn't bog, and guys doing 151, 152, 60 foots. He's tearing out on this thing. But I heard it in first gear go, bog. So we had to put a data logger on it. We had to figure out what was going on because it was driving me out of my mind. And I want to turn that really awesome sound I just made into a visual representation for you. So if I can, and I just want to say, I used a data logger initially that I wasn't happy with at all. So here's Mike holding the gas steady. Bam, he goes to launch, and he's aggressive. Mike's aggressive. He would take off. You'd hear the RPMs come up. Well, now listen to the RPMs. And then top of first, and then the rest of the run, a sawtooth we call it. Boom, boom, just like it's supposed to. Well, I kept asking, I was like, Mike, can't you leave a little bit harder? He goes, I am. I said, I know, but I hear the bike doing funny stuff. Well, the riders, Mike and Patrick Cooper, who I got on the bike a little bit later because Patrick was used to riding the Gen 3 Busa, it made that sound for both of them. So what's up with that? Because if you watch Patrick Cooper, maybe we can show a quick glimpse of Patrick used to ride 1000s, and his riding style is very simple. Tree comes down, bam. He is instant to wide open throttle. Now, Mike is a little bit different than that. He's slipping the clutch, but he still gets that gas open very, very quickly, as soon as he possibly can, so he doesn't spin the tire, wheelie, or do whatever. Well, let me bring you right back here. So, if this is Mike Davidson, he is whacking the gas straight up. This, okay, that says 4%, but that's actually 100%. So what is this? 26. The data logger is reversed. So 26% throttle is actually 74% throttle. Well, what in God's name is all this mess? And if I come over here and I look, 50%, you mean to tell me that the number 2 plate holder in XDA, who rides these motorcycles all the time and is aggressive as hell and can take his 190-pound ass and outrun everybody at the damn event for the entire year except for Jeremey Teasley, you're telling me that he is backing the gas off to 50%? Absolutely not. Didn't happen. So what? So why? Well, that's when we really started getting involved with Brendan at BT Moto. I'm like, hey, Brendan, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? I talked to Chris Moore. I don't care who cures the damn problem. Hey, Chris, can you tell me what's going on here? He's like, I'll talk to the guy down south and maybe we can come up with something. Nothing. And there's a reason why there's nothing. You remember the little orange triangle? When it comes up, a lot of times it says hill. That's a different story. But when that little orange code comes up, that's a code. That's a code that the motorcycle is saying, we don't like what's going on here. There's something wrong. Well, you take your OBD2 reader, plug it into the little red switch or the little red plug. What code do you get? 0. Nothing. No code. It was like it was never there. And we found out why, thank goodness. Thank you, Greg Smith, Steve Turner. I mean, all the people that helped with this bike. Chris Moore, Patrick, Mike Davis. Greg Smith is a bright dude. I got a hold of him and I said, Greg, how can I have codes and there not be codes? He said, you're reading the ECM, right? I said, yeah. He goes, they're not there. Those are called dash codes. Does anybody know what the hell a dash code is? Wait a minute, you mean we got codes over here? And I know, I talked to Don Gould about the Kawasaki's do it also. But you've got codes in the ECM and codes in the dash, and they don't talk. Well, I promise you can't get a code out of the dash by flashing the ECM. Some of them you can, but it's an entirely separate deal, and it's all there to save us from ourselves. So let me, I'll get back into exactly what we did or tried to do to get this bike to act correctly once we finally knew what was going on here in a second. So this whole revelation about the IMU, and I apologize for all the bad words. I get frustrated just telling this story. Brendan would make a change. I'd go ride the bike on the street. I look at the data logger, looks great. I would ask Patrick or Mike, because they're both much better riders than I am. Shut up, Mike, I hear you, don't give me crap. They're much better riders than I am. Well, I could go out on the street, the bike would spin the tire, it would do all kinds of crazy stuff, the code would come up, but it didn't look like it was interfering with the throttle all that much. Okay, it's fixed. Then we get to a prepped track or drag strip and data log it. Nothing changed. Nothing, absolutely nothing. We were absolutely beating our heads against the wall. And just as a quick side note, Patrick Cooper raced his bike all last year. I think he ended up with a number 5 plate then, number 6 plate this year because he had some bad luck in the finals. His bike's never been unrestricted. He's ridden it restricted the entire time. So Patrick, at his local track, would go out, click off great runs, 8-second runs, no problems. He went to National Trail, which, sorry National Trail, it's a poo hole compared to most of the tracks around here. One of the slipperiest tracks on a crappy day. Patrick went 870s at over 160 miles an hour. Well, then he shows up at the XDA event. We've automatically picked up, and you'll hear about this a little bit later, but we've automatically picked up, we pick up almost a 10th just putting the bike in the trailer and driving from Ohio to Maryland because of the altitude change and because of how much denser the atmosphere is closer to sea level. That's where Maryland is, compared to almost 900 feet above sea level all the time where we are in Ohio. Patrick would show up at these tracks and run in the 9s. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you know, that happened in national events, that's nerves, that's this, that's that. Well, that could be. But I can tell you that we found out that this motorcycle, when you launch it on a drag strip launch with a lot of traction, the electronic Nanny control that I spoke about, the Nanny control kicks in to try to save you from yourself. That's awesome, you know, if we're all street riding, but we don't have any place for that at a national event where we're trying to be the quickest, fastest motorcycle in the class. And the thing that was even more difficult, and I'll show you here just a second, I can actually show it to you graphically again. The bike would interfere differently depending on the rider's style. Like I said, we had Chris could 60-foot the bike, Mike 60-foot the bike, Jeremey really 60-foot the bike, 140s. And the bike would interfere differently depending on the rider and depending on the racetrack. So it was very, very difficult to actually spot what was going on, much less cure it, because we would go out and test, we'd think it's okay. I never went to the XDA Finals in Maryland. When we went to the first race and could only go an 891 with a bike that makes this much horsepower, I wasn't gonna go back until it was fixed. I show up at the finals thinking that it's fixed and go, ah, shit, really? Mike Davis jumped on that motorcycle on Thursday tune and test, made 11 passes. Guess how many times he got in the 8s? It's a round number, 0. At the end of the 11th pass, he said, Brock, I don't know what's wrong with that motorcycle, but it isn't right.
The last pass should have been in the 8s. Everything on the ticket said it should be in the 8s as far as mile an hour, all the rest of that. But that time I was telling you about between the 60-foot clock and the 330 clocks where the electronic throttle valve was neutering this bike. Come here a second. This shit, guess exactly where that happens. You're right. From the 60-foot clock to the 330. So let me pull up a couple things here. I won't drag you through it, but I want to show you a quick difference between Patrick and Mike, the riding styles, and then we'll get into how we made this crap stop. All right, let me try and point out exactly what happened here, and I'm just basically going to show you some different data logs, and all you really need to know is that as the rider is giving the bike gas, giving it clutch, the RPM's going up through first gear. That's where all of these are. So if I go here, you look at Mike Davis, this one I showed you before that was a little jacked up. He goes take off, what's all this mess? Here's Patrick, very similar, goes to take off, but look how much longer it took to get into the mess. Now granted, some of this could be rider style, but none of this should be happening. If you've got the gas wide open, it should stay wide open. At one point, and let me because of the frustration, I actually, and Brendan at BT Moto, he said, Brock, you know, why don't you try taking off the wheel speed sensor, the rear wheel speed sensor? Maybe that's causing some kind of problem. So I put Patrick on the bike, I pull off the rear wheel speed sensor, I take it to Edgewater, I let Patrick ride the bike. Now you saw what had just happened. Here's Patrick under normal circumstances. We pull off the rear wheel speed sensor. Look at that. It's almost dead ass, except for it finally gets to 100% throttle of second gear, third gear. He clicks into fourth gear. What's that? Somebody tell me what that is. Are we to believe that Patrick decided that it would be a great idea in fourth gear, going almost 160 miles an hour, to back the gas off to 75%? No, that wasn't Patrick. That was the motorcycle going, okay, you took off, we saw something was going on, but we went ahead and let it go, and then we let you go. Oh, but then we didn't know what the rear wheel speed was compared to the front, so something's got to be wrong, so it cut power. It cut the electronic throttle valve down 25%. Do you see how I want to choke this motorcycle out? It's killing me. So, we started getting to work and started thinking, okay, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? I'm going to pull the seat off here in a second and show you what we did to fake it out before we put Jeremey Teasley on it at the XDA Finals race. Okay, so we're at the XDA Finals. Mike Davis just rode the bike 11 times and couldn't get, he went every 9 whatever you could do, 901, 902, 903. He wore out all the 90s that you could absolutely get on the bike. So at the end of the day, we're sitting around, there could have been an adult beverage or 10 involved with our discussion. We're sitting around, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I've already pulled off the rear wheel speed sensor. The bike did exactly the same thing. How does it know? What the hell is going on here? And we're sitting there, I'm talking to Mark Shively, who's been a tremendous help in this. Like, it's gotta be the IMU. Well, if you've ever had a bike with carburetors, you probably don't know what an IMU is. But if you have a modern day fuel injected motorcycle, especially with all this super trick, traction control, corner control, wheelie control, stoppie control, that all revolves around the use of an IMU. I first discovered it with my 2010 BMW. It kicked my ass then and I didn't know why. I know now. So we started thinking, hey Mike, what if we tried to trick that IMU? So think about it this way, and this was my graphic representation to them. You're launching the bike knows you're going forward, it might think you're wheeling. What if we take that IMU and we just reverse it? Turn it around. That way, you're launching, and instead of going forward, it's going backwards, so the bike thinks you're putting the brakes on instead of giving it too much gas. Why would it interfere with the throttle? Well, Jeremey was running a little bit late to the track, so we started the Friday morning test session with Mike Davis with the IMU turned 180 degrees backwards. All right, this is gonna be great. Ready, Mike? Go. Boom! 90 something. I don't even remember. All I know is that when I looked at the data logger, guess what changed? Nothing. It knew. The damn bike knew, even though we were trying to convince it that it was going backwards, it going backwards, it knew it was going forwards. It's up anyway. Oh my God, this thing's killing me. So Mike's like, he's like, well, just try it. Let's try it this way. I didn't even look. So when you hear me, I'm like, we're telling the bike to go upside down and backwards. I don't know what we're doing. Bam, let's throw another 9.0 up and do the same thing again. So he just grabs the IMU. It's got a little mounting plate. I'll show you here in a second. But it's got a little mounting plate. And he goes, throws it under the seat. Mark puts the seat back on. Let's try that. Okay. So he goes off, he takes off, beautiful pass, great. I think he went, I'm not mistaken, I think he went his quickest to date, which at that particular event, which is I think a 9:01. But when I went back and looked at the data logger, I saw something that I really liked. Let me pull that up for you here real quick. Okay, I was a little off on my time. Mike actually ended up running a 9:06. But he also fought a wheelie and had to chop the gas. That was really pretty good, but I want to show you what changing that IMU. So basically, we took it and turned it 90 degrees. So when it was stationary, it thought we were going down a hill. So when it launched, it still interfered, but check this out. Mike launches, you can see it goes all the way to 100%, and then look what it does. It stays pretty much the same. Not this jagged crap. And the thing about it is from a rider's perspective, you've got to be able to control that throttle. At least if the electronic throttle valve is holding it at, that's about 60%. At least if it's holding it at 60%, the rider can launch it, understand he's at 60%, do his best to get past it, and you can be consistent with it. Well, I didn't even want Jeremey to ride the bike. He had told me he wanted a challenge, and I'm like, challenge, you know, if you want your ass kicked, mouth off in a bar. You do not have to ride this motorcycle. And Jeremy's like, no, I'll try it. So when we handed the key to Jeremey, that's how we handed it to him. And I'll pull up something here in a second, but I do want to mention that when we did that, we still got that little hill triangle. We would turn it off, you know, we do the burnout, turn the bike off, the code would be gone. Well, if you left hard enough or it spun the tire, if it did anything, that stupid little code came on again, which made us know that this crap was happening. It was still happening, but at least it was happening consistently. So that's how we handed Jeremey the bike. Let me pull up a couple things here and show you just exactly what he did with this mess. Okay, now I need to make something perfectly clear. You're not allowed to run a data logger in the super stock class. So when we have the data logger, it's either for practice, but it has to be completely removed from the motorcycle. I'll show you some of that little disaster here in a second also. But we handed Jeremey the bike. He went out, this was in the Friday test session, and he makes a pass on the bike. Now, Jeremey does not F around. This tube, he's so smooth, it's hard to tell how quickly he's going. But I even make mention, if you look at a couple of the videos, you know, previously where we won, where Jeremey takes off, I'm like, wow. I can see through my phone that this dude's tearing out of there. He's really amazing. On Friday, we handed him the bike exactly as Mike rode it, and Jeremey did what Jeremey does. He jumps on the bike, bam, he nails it. Look what happened. So, right here, obviously 100% throttle again. Check it out. It's going 60, it's going 60. Okay, 47 is actually 53%. So he's at 47 or 53%. He's in first. He just did a 149 60 foot, and the bike says, "Oh, everything's okay. I'm going to go ahead and give you 47% more throttle instantly." So if you the video that I've got of Jeremy doing the gangster wheel stand, he tears out the bike wheelies like normal. And I'll just be real honest with you. This bike makes 210 horsepower on my dyno on MR12. At 50% throttle, it's making, I don't know, 160 something. So in an instant, an absolute instant, it goes to wide open throttle, gives him another 50 horsepower. It's almost like having nitrous in the throttle of a stock wheelbase bike and having no idea when the nitrous is going to come on. Well, it threw him up into that gangster wheelie. He fought it, and you can see here, he got the gas all the way open, but it wasn't the bike wasn't in second gear yet, so he had to chop the gas. And you see the big hump, he almost looped that motorcycle. He's like, and bam, I mean, he chopped the gas almost instantly down to 10% throttle. He almost shut it completely off. He's like, "Man, I didn't want to loop your motorcycle." He's good. I don't want you to loop it either if it's running. If it's not, who cares? So anyway, that's how Jeremy rode that motorcycle for the rest of the event. Okay, stop. I forgot one very important thing. On that pass, and he made a couple more passes, the mile an hour was wrong. Chris went 160. Chris is probably 20 pounds heavier than Jeremy. Jeremy went 158 on one pass, 159 on the other. What the hell's going on with that? Well, somebody came up to me, and I can't remember. Somebody comes up and goes, "Why is Jeremy putting the brakes on before the end?" What are you talking about? Didn't you see it? Nah, I'm in my phone trying to get the perfect angle, the perfect shot. I didn't see the brake lights come on. Well, let me tell you something, guys. That little triangle, when it says hill with an exclamation point, it's throwing the bike into hill mode, even though you've got hill mode turned off on the dash. What the hell is hill mode, and why do I need it on a Hayabusa, which is supposed to be one of the fastest motorcycles in the world? Well, because safety is so paramount, if you've got your Generation 3 Hayabusa that we know is allowed to go 186 miles an hour, and it does every bit of that off the showroom floor if you let it, sorry Suzuki, sorry lawyers. That's a fast motorcycle, but who knows? Maybe you bought it and don't know how to go up a hill. So it's putting the bike in hill mode, even though we didn't ask it to go into hill mode, it's putting the bike in hill mode. Well, what does hill mode do? When you let the clutch go, if you don't give it enough gas, it gives more for you so you don't stall, because that's dangerous. If you give it too much, oh my God, you might wheelie. That's dangerous too, so it takes it away. Well, guess what else it does? It's so difficult to hold the throttle and the clutch and the brake. It puts the rear brake on so you don't roll backwards. All great stuff. Thanks, Suzuki. But we're racing. Don't race on hills. We're not hill climbing. We're on a goddamn drag strip. We just want to get what we paid for, which we thought was the fastest motorcycle money can buy. Turns out it's in there, but nobody knew and nobody believed it. So anyway, brake lights coming on going down the racetrack because it thinks we're on the hill. If you remember, we told it that we were at 90 degrees, so as soon as it takes off, we go, "Oh, wow, wow, wow." And it's putting the rear brake on. I looked, and you can still see it here. You see the discoloration of my rear brake disc here? These don't touch. They don't touch. Can't turn around if it doesn't touch. It was touching because the bike was putting the rear brake on as Jeremy was going down the track. Remember I said it was frustrating to deal with this stuff. So anyway, I said, what are we going to do about that? You're not allowed. I can't take the brakes off. You're not allowed. Somebody in the class will go, Brock's got his brakes off, and we'll get disqualified. So I'm like, Mark, what do you think we should do about this? Wait a minute, I know. We take the brake bleeder, open it up, and I go ahead and suck that full of air. So he went ahead and put the brakes on. The whole race, Jeremy won the race. Jeremy went almost 163 miles an hour on this motorcycle, even though the bike was putting the brakes on. Well, it was putting the brakes on, but it was pumping air, so the brakes couldn't function. And that's when they started qualifying. Jeremy goes out, boom, 886, went faster, quicker than Chris. Not the same bike, don't compare it to, stop it. Chris is a hell of a rider. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, wow, what a long story. To get to the fun part, I'm gonna show you guys that we have cured this. You don't have to do any of this bullshit. You can plug what we've got into your motorcycle and go enjoy it at the racetrack. We'll get into that here shortly too. Okay, this is the point in the video where the true performance enthusiasts are going to scroll to until they get to the big bump where I explain what did we do. Let me show you something. So, this is the IMU. Just so you guys know, this is exactly how the bike came off the track after Jeremy rode it. This was our XDA setup, even though we have the new setup, the super stock box in here now. You can see this isn't plugged in. We don't need it anymore, but it was plugged in for the race when Jeremy rode the bike because we didn't have the fix yet. So this is how we got it to at least be consistent. So that is the little pain in my rear end. And listen guys, it's a great thing. If you're a street rider, if you road race, pretty much anything you want to do, this will help save your ass. It checks pitch, yaw, wheelie, cornering clearance. That's how, like, you know, you can be on one of these bikes these days, have 210 horsepower, be banked over in a curve. This thing knows it. You whack the gas wide open and it won't let your dumb ass spin out and wreck. Great thing. Just not for what we're doing on a closed course where we're trying to accelerate and perform our best. So anyway, that's that thing. God, I wanted to do that for all year. So, what did you do? Actually, you know what? Let's just come over here. We have, and we're trying to get XDA approval for 2025. I don't think we're going to have a problem because, once again, Kawasaki guys, let's get this through your head. This is a result of Euro 5. The ZX14 is not Euro 5 approved. The Euro 5 motorcycles moving forward are all going to have this safety stuff, so we're going to have to address it then. We just have to address it now. So we know you loved putting your foot in our ass but when we had all this crap going on, but we've solved it and we just want to have a fair race. So anyway, danger, closed course, and we mean it. You don't have traction control. You don't have wheelie control. It will not save you. If you crank the gas, turn over in a corner, you're gonna crash. This is only for the racetrack, but the beautiful news is it's a one-stop deal. It plugs into your OBD2 connector. What Will King call it? The red connector of death. All the bikes who have the little red one, they suck. Don't play with them. Go play with some other bike. Well, we're actually enjoying the red one right now because all you have to do is plug this harness in. This cool little harness here prevents your cruise control from going on because this box, the super stock box, does several things. It deletes your IMU first and foremost. It also deletes your ABS. Now, when I say delete your ABS, does that mean you can pull the entire unit off and take that weight off of your bike and just run a couple lines? Yes, Not in super stock, because the rules aren't really clear as to whether or not you can pull it off. So ours is still here, where we have not removed it. We're not allowed. Once again, this has never been used in XDA competition, ever. We want it to be, because that's fair, right? That's all we want is fair. So anyway, you plug everything together. This little dandy deal here prevents your cruise control from going on, because I know we probably need cruise control drag racing, but we don't want it to come on, and we especially don't want it to come on if we've deleted the ABS so it won't turn off when we hit our brakes. That's what this does. Well, conveniently, we put a little pigtail on here. Greg Smith's a genius. And now we're going to offer a kill switch. So instead of this fine, fancy little setup here where you drill your switch, and some guys go ahead and drill to China and wonder why their bike doesn't run right. Now you just unplug, plug it in, you take this little jumper off, you plug this into it, and now you've got a really nice little wrist kill setup that's also plug and play and very reliable. So we've got that, but we also have something else that's cool. On this bike, the shifter is super slow and sucks. Can it be fixed? Maybe. We just didn't have the time. So we went to an aftermarket shifter. Well, guess what happens when you unplug the OEM shifter? You can't adjust anything, not anything, but anything shifter related on the dash, and it throws codes. Well, when Jeremy won the XDA race, we had an aftermarket shifter controlling the bike, but the OEM shifter was zip tied up under the tank because we didn't have any way to get the codes to quit and not lock up the dashboard. Well, now we have this. You unplug your OEM shifter, throw it in your toolbox for a rainy day, plug this in, no more problems. One of the other problems that all these motorcycles have, you have no idea how many bikes have cured a miss because their kickstand spring got loose. They go over a bump, the kickstand moves, and all of a sudden the bike goes, what the hell? Well, we now have a kickstand delete switch, but this little dandy here. All right, for you die-hard Suzuki guys, this is a paper clip. What the talking about, bro? Suzuki people know there's a paper clip trick that we've been using on Suzukis for years, all fuel injected Suzukis, really since whatever, 98, 97, whenever they came out. You could take a regular paper clip, bend it into a U, put it in your diagnostic port, and put the bike in dealer mode. We now have a dealer mode switch, and let me show you the beauty of that. All right, this is just for dramatic flair. And listen guys, just so you know, go ahead and, this is the prototype box. This is the dealer switch that pigtailed into it when we made the production super stock box, not the prototype. This switch is built into the box because we figured if you're racing, you need to know if you're throwing codes no matter what. You don't need to remember to put the switch on. But if you're doing anything else and want the switch, we have that too. So what happens here? All right, so check out the dash here. For whatever reason, we have an FI light on right now. I'm not exactly sure why, but watch this magic. That's why. Now I know. I look up code U021, and it will tell me exactly what's going on. And here's the best part. Is that an ECM code? No, that's a dash code. So now you can see the damn dash codes that you couldn't see using an OBD2 reader, so you can actually have a much better feeling of what's going on. Now, I'm gonna do something real quick here. Oh, our data logger, by the way. These are the crappy connections I came up with for the one that we used. Now, we do have a max ECU on this bike. Once again, not legal for XDA, we know it, don't bitch. We're only using it for its data capabilities. So moving forward, we've got all kinds of data: front wheel speed, rear wheel speed, coolant. You know, did a code come on during the run? If so, what was it? Of course, we can see it visually, but this will document it so we know what's going on. I'm going to make these codes go away so that you can see what your bike's going to look like when you put the super stock box on. All right, guys, just so you know, look, this looks like an explosion in a wiring factory. This is prototype stuff. The stuff we sell is much, much cleaner. I accidentally had something plugged in wrong, so let's try this again. Now we come over here, we look at our dash. Our dumb little orange light is off. All the lights are off. Now the traction control light's going to stay on all the time because we have the traction control turned off on the dashboard. I'm gonna go ahead and start the bike real quick. You can stay there. No oil pressure. And look at that. For those of you not in the know, Suzuki's dealer code for there is no dealer code and are no dealer codes is 00000. No codes. Now, as we were going through the development process, we saw all kinds of different codes. That's how we decided what to do and how to configure the super stock box. So, this bike is code free. When Jeremy rode it at Killcare, now remember, we left Maryland Sunday night. The following Thursday, we lose almost 1/10 of a second in the trailer. Jeremy goes out, his very first pass. We only had the IMU delete. We didn't even have the ABS delete yet. Jeremy went out, ran an 877. Now, does that mean it would have been an 867 in Maryland? Maybe. Jeremy's been 860s on ZX14s. David Fondon, I think he's been at 862? Don't bitch about our cams. We're gonna have a hell of a time catching that. We won the last race because of the rider and because we tripped and fell and Mike Davis accidentally put the IMU in the way it needed to be. Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate it. You guys have no idea. I broke the crank position sensor. Steve Turner, I called him up, hey Steve, you got one? Because Patrick had one, but he needed it to go to the race. I drive from Dayton, Ohio to north of Detroit, Michigan to grab an ECM from him. He had Bob Carpenter pull the crank position sensor off of his own personal motor. Bob and his son Eric boxed that stuff up overnight, Saturday delivered. That's just to make it to the XDA. We had crap problems and mysterious shit going on everywhere, and I really want to thank everybody who helped us get it done. But if you're a Hayabusa owner, a Gen 3 Hayabusa owner, and you want your bike to run your best, you should thank them too. So, let's put all these thoughts together here right after this. All right, guys. Wow, what a ride. We still don't have a full pass with the ABS deleted as well as the IMU. Let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. Oh, by the way, we used the dealer code setup to tell me what was going on. I accidentally had the ABS connector in the disconnected right then. So, the last pass we want to see. All right, guys. So you saw all the other stuff. We still didn't have the nice data logger on the bike with Jeremy when he came and rode it, but I want you to look at this. He takes off, holding the throttle, bam, 100% throttle. He is holding, Jeremey Teasley is holding the throttle until the bike goes into a wheelie. That 877 pass, if you look real close on the video, the bike was starting to come up. He had to pedal it a little bit and go back down. So, is that normal? Yeah. That's why I was so excited. I was like, Jeremy, come here, look. He's like, well, it still doesn't look right. It doesn't look right compared to real decent data loggers, but Jeremy controlled that. We knew we had it. Now, am I saying that the ABS didn't come in and get him a little bit of grief on this one? I really believe it did. And my testing on the street sort of proved that it did. But let me show you one last thing with me going out and doing a little bit of practice. Listen, I don't ride like I used to. I'm old, I'm fat, I'm slow. But I can make a pass to assure that we are getting to 100% throttle in a linear fashion. I'll pull that up right now. Okay guys, I'm switching gears on you because this is the data from the Max ECU. I'm the only one that's ridden the bike with the Max ECU on there and functioning correctly and the ABS deleted, but let me show you this right here. Here's the purple line. I launch, and think about it this way, guys, all motorcycles, when you engage the clutch, the RPMs are going to drop, and as a rider, I typically will gas it, feel what's going on, back off a little, and then see if I can get it wide open. Well, look at this. The RPMs come up, that's the red. I gas it, I'm able to roll into the gas, and bam, straight up, shift, 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 100% throttle the entire time. This is what a data log, now, it would look a hell of a lot better if Jeremy was riding the bike or Mike was riding the bike, Patrick, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted a full-blown, can I get the gas 100% locked and know that it's locked and know that there's no electronic throttle valve gibbly going on. It's fixed. The good news is all of this mess and all of this disaster, y'all don't have to worry about. Like I said, I really don't want to sound arrogant, but we're curing problems that other people don't even know exist, right? So we've cured them. We are in the middle of putting together a really nice package. We're not finished with our Gen 3 Hayabusa components. We're concentrating on the super stock class for now because what better way to prove your products than in a national event environment? If you can win at a national event, granted, I got the Jeremey Teasley set up. Okay, that's easy. Put Jeremy on the bike. He's badass. But we've also been working on the Brock setup and the setup for you. All we've got to do is get out to the racetrack. Unfortunately, here in Ohio, it's November. Our tracks are closed. We're going to be shut down until springtime unless we can make it south. But I am, after that run, and that was at the drag strip on a prep track. Not a hard launch by a long shot, but it was under the same conditions that the bike was previously failing under. It didn't fail. We've got it cured. And we are going to continue stocking stuff like that. And now that it's wintertime, I'm going to be able to get, if you looked at the collage, there was some crazy clutch stuff going on. We are going to make all of that clutch stuff available. And like I said, I alluded to previously, it's not just for super stock. This is just, yet again, this isn't really just for drag racing. The drag strip is just a great measuring device to see how hard your motorcycle is accelerating. Now, do you want to pull off this crap and go ride around on the street? Absolutely not. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's for racetrack use. It is so easy to pull it on and pull it off. You can always disconnect your IMU and your ABS. Takes 5 minutes, if that. Go to the drag strip with the super stock box plugged in. Then when you go back out on the street, unplug the super stock box, put your IMU and your ABS back in, and then you got all the safety stuff that Suzuki initially put on the motorcycle. So anyway, enough rambling. Wow, this took a while. It always does, especially when we're catching up. But I alluded to it before. I had some eye issues. I go to my last doctor's appointment for the current cure tomorrow. In January, I got to go back to California for another quickie surgery, but the recovery should be good. So hopefully we won't have so much downtime like we did this time. Love you guys. I like my eyes better. No offense. So we take care of Brock's performance. We take care of Brock. And in the meantime, we cure these problems and make the solutions available for you, to you. Anyway, that said, I'm Brock from Brock's Performance. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope that if you have a bike moving into the future that has this stuff going on, that you realize that we can help you. And until next time, we'll see you then.